in Crimea. But you've been looking at how the referendum, which took place on Sunday, denounced as illegal by Western powers, the United States, the European Union, declared as perfectly normal by Vladimir Putin, of course. You've been looking at various media and how they've been covering.
That's right.
The results.
From the beginning of this whole crisis in Ukraine, which has focused more now on Crimea, of course, with the dispute over the territory, there has been a very different depiction of what's been going on, depending on the media that you consult. So let's have a look at how those different interpretations of what's going on play out in the media. This is Russia Today's website, so you're getting a pro-Moscow point of view, obviously. Crimean referendum is democracy in action. So that's what we're seeing here is very much an emphasis on the democratic aspect of the referendum.
Right.
But for Joe Biden and for pretty much the rest of the world, it's simply a land grab, right? It is a way of legitimising.
He's speaking in Poland today.
That's right, legitimising a land grab. And this is on Today's Zaman, a Turkish website, and they are in line with that Western way of thinking. Turkey calls referendum illegal and illegitimate, right? So that's essentially
some people have been
two entirely different readings of the situation.
Some networks I see have been comparing it to the Scottish independence referendum.
Oh gosh, I think it's probably a little bit less. Certainly, what the Crimean referendum was a little bit more rushed. I think
a little bit more. Yes,
above.
I think the Scots have had longer to prepare.
Centuries to think about it,
yes.
Or maybe less thinking about it as it being rammed down their throats at some points. But now they're thinking about it. They're having a lot of time to think and chew over what way to go. Now, more broadly speaking, the events in Ukraine have also been depicted in very polarised manner. Euromaidan, that was one of the groups organising the protests in Maidan Square. Ukraine's self-organising revolution for the World Affairs Journal. Now, that was a point of view very much disputed in the Russian media and elsewhere, where it was seen as a power grab, right, coordinated by the West, or indeed a coup d'etat. So,
right, this is the Russian line, isn't it? This is what Vladimir Putin was saying today in that big speech he gave. He said, look, the West are the ones that stirred up trouble in Ukraine, and we have to step in and protect our interests.
So in Crimea, it's a completely legal democratic referendum versus an illegal act of, a land grab. And more broadly speaking,
violation of Ukrainian sovereignty.
That's right. More broadly speaking, you've got coup d'etat in Ukraine versus revolution. So that's kind of how it's playing out. Now, a lot of people have been mentioning, I suppose, the issue of Kosovo, the fact that there was a referendum in Kosovo in 2008, which saw it separate from Serbia. And Le Figaro here is saying, look, is there a little bit of a double standard? That is something that certainly the Russians are pointing out. They're saying also with Iraq and Afghanistan, international law respected, sometimes not. A lot of analysts then saying, look, all of these situations are very different. They're individual situations. Can they really be compared in a facile manner like that? In any case, one thing that is interesting in this Le Figaro article, Jean-Christophe Buisson, writing for Le Figaro magazine, says, there's a big focus at the moment about the Tatar population in Crimea and the fact that they didn't vote in this referendum, largely speaking. Well, what about the Orthodox?
They make up about 10 to 12% of the Crimean population.
That's right. And there was much less of a focus on the Orthodox minority in Kosovo who,
But if you have a referendum, it's about the majority, isn't it? It's yes or no. It's how many people want it.
Exactly. So I suppose it's how credible this referendum was, how well organised it was. It does seem that, it was probably certainly a majority. So there you go. Lots of discussions about the double standard or lack thereof. Now, moving on to, I suppose, the coverage in Crimea and in Ukraine generally. Essentially Kremlin-controlled, as it has been described here by Mark Mackinson for the Canadian paper The Globe and Mail. If you're Russian-speaking in Crimea, you are essentially getting Interfax, Russian news agency, you're getting STB, Russian television. It's a very filtered view of the world, and very much a sense, locals are getting a sense that NATO and the EU are after Ukraine's soil, right? But then if you're looking at the Ukrainian language channels, such as Fifth Channel, according to his reading of things, they were extremely tough on Mr. Yanukovych's regime. It was always termed as a regime, not as as an elected government. So, according to the rector of the Crimean University of Arts, Culture and Tourism, there is no journalism in Ukraine. only propaganda. You're getting one side of the story or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a media war, as we've talked about many
Absolutely.
times. Europe is worried about what Vladimir Putin is planning to do next. I mean, not quite recently, Angela Merkel said he was living on another planet, didn't she?
That's right.
Nobody knows what's going on in his head and what he might try to do next in the region. Will he try and reconquer the entire Soviet
this
empire?
is it. I suppose if you start to break down those rules of international law, of sovereignty, of territorial integrity, where do you go next? And there is this map that I saw.
Let's look at Catalonia, for example.
Yes, that's
Spain.
right.
They want to have
and this
referendum on
map
independence, don't they?
neatly syncs with what you're just saying there. If we could get rid of the bar on the bottom, I'll just show you. If we can go full screen, I'll show you essentially what we have here is a map showing all of the different zones in Europe where if people followed through on their right to self-determination, Europe would look like
Welsh,
a very
the Basque.
different place indeed. And this map actually, which has been doing the rounds since 2013, I've seen it again circulating today. It's showing all of those shifts in borders in Europe
this is good.
since the year
It's
1000.
1,000 years, isn't it? Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if we can actually play that video, but
I don't think we've
in
got
any
time for
case,
1,000 years, but
suffice
yes,
it to
it's
say that those borders have shifted quite a lot over that period of time, and each one of those shifts in borders was accompanied by a war of some kind or other. So,
well, yeah, let's not forget 100 years ago this year, of course, shifting borders caused an awful lot of bloodshed, the
That's
worst
right.
war the world had ever seen.
that's right.
So it's quite scary to be seeing shifting borders going on
once again,
Yeah,
I think that's the worry for a lot of people in Europe.
absolutely. James, thank you very much
Thanks, Laura.
indeed. James Creighton there with Media Watch. Now it's time for our focus report, which comes today from